Hey guys, this is JT Works on Cars. Today, this video is about how do I maintain my Acura TSX and at what mileage I had certain problems. So that way, if you also own an Acura TSX, a second generation Acura TSX to be specific, a 9th gen SI, or even a 8th gen Accord, because they're all very similar in terms of the engine. The 9th gen SI and the 2nd gen TSX do have very similar engines. I think the block is slightly different to accommodate the different chassis of the 9th gen SIs. But nonetheless, it's just so if you own an Accord, a Civic, or a TSX, you know at what mileage you have to prepare your budget to replace certain items. For me personally, when I drove the car very gently, to put it right, mainly highway, cruising at 70 or 60 miles an hour on the interstate, I changed my oil every 5K when I did that. But when I started driving more in the city, you know, taking my car on the back roads more often, I decided to change my oil every 3K. And you might ask, every 3K, you know, that's a little outdated, is it not? I'd say so myself, but at the same time, it's my car, it gives me peace of mind, and I do the maintenance myself. So it doesn't really cost me that much money, it just costs me a little bit of time, but I do enjoy making sure my cars are maintained, so it's also a bit of a hobby. Transmission fluid, I change mine out every 10K. You know, Honda transmissions are very notchy. The second and third gear loves to grind, you know. Is it really a Honda if your second and third doesn't grind? You know, like even the new Type R's have fucking transmission, second gear grinds, or even lockouts. It's a little ridiculous, but it's just Honda things, right? So that's why I change mine out every 10K, and I personally use Redline MTL. And the reason I use Redline MTL is it gave me the most consistent feel out of AMSOIL, Honda MTF, or even AC Deco Synchromesh Friction Modified. I already made a video about this, so I'm not going to go too into depth, but the Redline was the most consistent, and it prevented a lot of the notchiness for 10K miles. So that's why I went with that interval. As for coolant, I changed mine out at 122K, and then the interval after that is every 60K or 5 years, whichever comes first. So that's what I'm going to stick to. Spark plugs, I plan on doing it every 100K miles. That's what the NGK Iridiums are rated for, and that's what the service manual recommends. Or until I have a spark plug misfire, like when you get a code, I think it's like the P0301s to 304 series. If you get one of those, most likely it's your spark plug or your coil pack. But coil packs don't really go out that often. It's most likely probably just your spark plug. So swapping out spark plugs is an easy fix. I think they're only like 15 bucks a pop or something. I forget the price. So I stick to that interval. Brake and clutch fluid, I personally use .4. I do a brake bleed and clutch bleed every year. That might be a bit excessive to some, but when I do bleed the brakes, I do notice a bit of air come out every single time. I do it annually. Even though my system is sealed, it's not leaking anywhere, and that just surprises me. So just for comfort, peace of mind, and safety, I just bleed both systems out annually. And it only costs me an hour of my life. Actually a little more because I gotta go drive and buy the fluid, and about 10 bucks for a whole liter. So that's why I do that. Now with the base, oh wait, there's two more things, air filter and cabin air filter. Cabin air filter, I personally change that out every year. You know, every year or every 10K miles, whichever comes first. I just do mine every spring. So right around March, I buy a filter off Amazon, I just slap it in. Set it and forget it. That's right before the pollen season comes, and that's right before it becomes hot. So it just makes sense to do it that way, in my opinion. Additionally, engine air filter. I used to do that every 30K miles in most cars, but on this car I have a K&N short ram intake. So I just cleaned that air filter out every 6K miles or so. So every second oil change, I make sure to clean that K&N air filter out. And I do notice a bit of acceleration difference when I do that. In just day-to-day driving, the engine feels more responsive. Holy shit, why are they blocking roads here, man? That's so dope. So that's why I do that. But you know, on normal cars, you know, if the intake's not modified, I do personally prefer changing it out every 2 years, or when the car reaches 30K miles. That's a pretty good interval to do it, and engine air filters are pretty cheap in most cars, so it's not like you're wasting money. All right, now let's go on to major repairs. Suspension. Let's focus on that. My shocks felt worn at 125K miles. I drove my old Odyssey, which had 80K miles on it. I noticed suspension felt much more compliant and less crashy over bumps. I'm like, that doesn't make sense for an Odyssey to ride much better than an Acura. So I decided to buy Kona yellow shocks. I was thinking about doing BC coilovers, but in my mind, I'm like, I've been in BC coilover cars before, and it didn't ride too well in all honesty, and it had a lot of suspension noise. So I just ultimately decided it wasn't the right path. Kona yellows were more affordable and had better performance, better bang for your buck. The 4 shocks cost me about $700, so that says a lot about the quality. You know, cheap tank coilovers are like $800, so that says enough about the shocks. Just the shocks alone, no springs, no top hats, are $700 on sale. You already know you bought a quality item, and I don't regret it. These are rebound adjustable, and I have mine set for 1 full turn in the front from full soft and 1/4 of a turn in the rear from full soft. And dude, this thing handles like it's on fucking rails. So absolutely no regrets. It does ride a bit rough because I have the rebound set so stiff, but it gives me the perfect steering response. And when I'm on the on-ramp, a very sharp on-ramp in Texas, barely any noticeable body lean. All my passengers were so impressed that this Acura handles so well, almost like a race car. And let's talk about lower control arm bushings. Those are common in Hondas to go out somewhere after the 100K mark. Mine personally, I noticed more of the slop around 130 grand, especially when shifting or going over speed bumps. It did creak a little. There was a little bit of excessive play, I would say. So I changed that with PCI spherical control, lower control arm bushings. Those are metal, by the way. The car does ride harsher. There's more NVH, but it does handle a lot better and gives me a lot more steering response, and it does reduce the wheel hop when I decide to drive aggressively when the car is warmed up. I'll do that in a bit. You know, I might do a second to first gear pull when I'm on the service road, but right now on these streets, it's very irresponsible to do that. So that's the mileage I have to replace my lower control arm bushings at. 130, we'll call it 132K. I've replaced the rear inner, the front compliance bushing, and the shock bushing. That's 3 bushings in 1 control arm, so multiply that by 2. And my upper control arm, it developed a little bit of play around the 135 or 36K mark, so I replaced that along with the tie rods, because there was a little bit of issue where my car would lose alignment every few months, and they couldn't figure out why. We replaced the inner and outer tie rods. I had my friend do it. I obviously paid him, and my steering response went up and the alignment holds, so I have no more issue with alignment. And for clutch, that's just dependent on who drives the car, how they drove it, and if it was highway miles or city miles. This car came from New York and Houston. I bought it up in Central and North Texas area, right? So that's a lot of city miles, and this clutch developed, it already had damper spring issues when I bought it. I noticed it around the 122K mark. I drove it up to 130K. There was no issues with slipping, but I did have second gear lockout when I was like doing first and second gear pulls. So I took it to a shop. They're like, hey, your clutch plate is a little worn. You know, that noise is your damper spring. I'm like, oh shit. They got it replaced, and I've been been smooth sailing ever since. So if you get at least 100 grand out of your clutch in the city, be happy with it. But if you're driving mainly on the highway and your clutch only lasts 50k miles, you know, obviously be mad, right? You like, because that's either a bad clutch or you can't drive stick for shit. And what else is there? Oh yeah. Shit, man, I'm getting tired. I'm forgetting what the hell I even did to my own car. All right, let's do a second gear pull here so you can hear this K&N intake and Greddy exhaust. Anyways, what else did I do with this car? Having a brain fart